What's going on, everybody? Crazy Dog back for another video. So I just got done doing the AFC East draft review. Now it's time to do the NFC East draft review and grades. So you already know the drill. And the team that I will be starting off with, ironically enough, was the host of the draft this year, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the one bad part about the Eagles hosting is the fact that every time they picked, we were forced to listen to that stupid song that they have. So anyways, let's go through their picks and see how they did. Starting off with their positions of need, they needed corner, wide receiver, obviously, defensive line, running back, and linebacker. So let's see how they address those positions in the draft. So with their first pick in the draft, which they got from the Vikings, thanks to the Vikings being so desperate for a quarterback that they had to trade for Sam Bradford. I know Eagle fans love you guys for that one, Minnesota. But with the 14th pick, the Eagles selected Derek Barnett, defensive end out of Tennessee. I know that pick got mixed reviews from... I got mixed receptions from the Eagles fans. A lot of them didn't like it because they wanted Dalvin Cook or Reuben Foster, or some even wanted Joe Mixon. EP. But Derek Barnett's going to be good. You know, he won't be the best defensive end of this rookie class because, you know, we got the best one. You know, I think Myles Garrett will be the best defensive end this year from this rookie class. I know Eagles fans will say, "Nah, man, Derek Barnett's going to be the best." We'll see about that. Well, yeah, Derek Barnett will be pretty good with that front four with Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. You know. Alright, moving on. Second round. Pick 11, 43 overall. The Philadelphia Eagles selected yet another controversial pick to the fans. Sidney Jones, cornerback out of Washington. Now, some people are actually saying that they want the Eagles to sit him for the year to let him get 100% healthy because, you know, thing about him, you know, he's good, but he's not thick when it comes to, you know, he's not bulky. You know, like, he does something wrong, makes a wrong move, he snaps a bone, it's over. You know, he could easily re-aggravate that injury. Alright, so they got Barnett and Jones for their first two picks. And Eagles fans didn't really like those picks too much. Those two picks got mixed reviews from Eagles fans. Moving on to their third round pick, which was a comp pick from the Ravens, thanks to, I believe this is what they got in exchange for Timmy Jernigan, who, by the way, will join Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett on that front four. Well, the Eagles used that third round, 35th pick selection on Rasul Douglas, another corner. So this guy will actually be able to play unlike Sidney Jones, who will most likely have to sit out. Unless, you know, the Eagles really want to risk it and send him out there, you know, see if he's really good to go. Because that's a risk. Because, you know, there could be a hole in the ground or, you know, like an indenture in the ground, and his foot could go in there, and he tries to turn, and there goes the leg. He done. So much for that. Now, after selecting Rasul Douglas in the fourth round, 12th pick, 118 overall, the Eagles selected Mac Hollins, a 6'4" wide receiver out of North Carolina. So another big-bodied wide receiver to go with Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith. Okay, that's actually a pretty good pick by the Eagles, you know. we'll see where Mac goes. He could be a special teamer, or he could be like a third string wide receiver. He's probably going to be better than Nelson Aguilar. But hey, we'll see what the Eagles do with that. I mean, he's a big body, so he'll probably start. He'll probably be like a second stringer, if anything. Moving on, still in the 4th round, with the 26th pick, 132nd overall, from the Vikings through the Chiefs, the Philadelphia Eagles selected Donnell Pumphrey, running back out of San Diego State. Now, this guy is going to be the next Darren Sproles. I already know it, because Darren apparently is retiring after this season, so got his replacement right there in Donnell Pumphrey. Now, again, a lot of people, mainly Eagles fans, did not like that pick. They wanted something else, but they got Donnell Pumphrey. A lot of them wanted Jamal Williams, who is another running back. I believe he's from BYU. But no, they got Donnell Pumphrey, and they're going to have to live with it. Maybe he'll be good, and he'll prove these Eagle fans wrong. But we'll see. Now, with their first of their 2 5th-round selections, the Eagles selected Shelton Gibson, wide receiver out of West Virginia. He'll probably most likely be a special teamer. Most likely. And then with the second 5th-rounder, they selected Nate Jerry, safety out of Nebraska. Now, I've also heard that they're going to move this guy to linebacker. This guy's a big dude. He's swole. He's a swole white boy. According to some Eagles fans. That's what they call him. They're calling him the swole white boy. Wow. Alright, now with their last selection, the Eagles selected Elijah Qualls, defensive tackle out of Washington. So they got another defensive tackle. So this is going to be a depth pick. But I like that Qualls pick, But he can go anywhere on the defensive line. So we'll see where Schwartz puts him. But yeah, there's the Eagles draft. I'm going to give that draft a B+ because they addressed a lot of needy positions. Wide receiver, cornerback, safety, defensive line. Although, if you ask an Eagle fan if they really needed to address defensive line, they'd say, nah. But, hey, you can never have too many defensive linemen, right? For depth and, maneuverability. Whenever a guy gets, gassed, you just have him go to the sidelines and bring in another dude, for the rotation. So, moving on now to the 3rd place Washington Redskins. Their positions of need were running back, safety, wide receiver, linebacker, and quarterback. So let's see how they address those positions in the draft. So with their first selection, which was the 17th pick in the 1st round, the Washington Redskins selected Jonathan Allen, defensive end out of Alabama. I like that pick a lot. He'll probably go with Ryan Kerrigan, But Jonathan Allen's a monster. I think he has shoulder issues, but doctors told him that it would not affect him until after his career's over. But we'll see. Now with their 2nd round pick, the Redskins selected Ryan Anderson, linebacker out of Alabama. So they go Alabama twice in a row. 2 very good players from that Alabama defense. Then in the 3rd round, the Redskins selected Fabian Moreau, corner out of UCLA. So they beef up the secondary with another corner. But of course, Fabian is injured. So we'll see, what he's like when he comes back. But I believe he tore his pec bench pressing at his pro day. Yeah. That's what this says in the pick analysis. It says, he was a 1st rounder until he tore his pectoral muscle bench pressing at his pro day. That had to hurt. That happens a lot. That's how Desmond Bryant got hurt for the Browns last year. He was lifting and he tore his pec. Wound up being out for the whole year before he even had a chance to start. But yeah, we'll see if he comes back better this year than whatever. But nice pick by the Redskins with Fabian Moreau. Then with their first of their 2 fourth-round selections, the Redskins selected Samaje Perine, running back out of Oklahoma. Low key, this is another guy I wanted the Browns to go after at some point in this draft, but he's going to Washington. He's going to have to face some stiff defenses. It's not going to be easy finding a hole. I mean, the Redskins' offensive line is not the best in the division, so he's going to have to work for his yards. But I think he's a very good running back, too. Then with their second fourth-round pick, the 17th pick in the fourth round, 123rd overall, the Redskins selected Monte Nicholson, safety out of Michigan State. Okay, so you get another safety to add to the guys you already got. Isn't like D'Angelo Hall a safety now or something like that? He's okay, I guess. Then with their 5th round selection, the Redskins selected Jeremy Sprinkle, tight end out of Arkansas. Okay, so you can add him to the guys you already have with Jordan Reed. All right. You know, I mean, you can go 2 tight end option with Reed and Sprinkle. Sprinkle? What kind of name is that? Sprinkle? Oh, man. Then in the 6th round, which they had 2 picks, the first one was 199 overall. That's the Tom Brady pick. The Redskins selected Chase Roulier, center out of Wyoming. So there's your backup center because, of course, your old center retired. So you need a new backup to back up the new one you have. Unless you want to make this dude your new center. I don't know. Then with your second 6th rounder from the Texans, the Redskins selected Robert Davis, wide receiver out of Georgia State. Okay. Now, 7th round, the Redskins selected Josh Harvey Clemens, safety out of Louisville, with their first 7th rounder. And with the second 7th rounder, they selected Joshua Holsey, D-back out of Auburn. So that is the Redskins draft. It's not an amazing draft, but they did, fill in most of their holes that were needed. So I'm going to give them a B- because they filled up almost all their spots except for quarterback. And by the way, there was actually a rumor during the draft, specifically day 1, that the Browns were looking to trade for Kirk Cousins. But it eventually turned out that that was fake news. Darn. No. Alrighty, next we got the New York Giants, the only team to beat the Cowboys twice. Alrighty, so the Giants' positions of need were offensive line, linebacker, running back, defensive line, tight end, and quarterback. So let's see how they address those positions. Didn't have too many picks either. So with their first round selection, the Giants selected tight end Evan Engram out of Mississippi, Ole Miss. Nice pick, you know. He could go good with Will Tye. Will Tye! Then with their second round selection, the Giants selected Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive tackle. It's kind of funny because Dalvin Tomlinson's initials are DT, and he plays defensive tackle. DT. Out of Alabama. So you got another great pickup for that amazing defensive line that the Giants have, you know. Especially since they lost Hankins, so they need a replacement. Can't afford to go without Hankins, but got Dalvin Tomlinson to replace him now. Third round, the Giants went quarterback. Yeah, quarterback. And selected Davis Webb, quarterback out of Cal. So most likely it'll be Davis Webb versus Geno Smith for the second string quarterback spot, which I predict Geno to win. Unless he, gets sucker punched by another lineman or something, like he did in New York when it was New York, right? Yeah, when he got sucker punched by that E.K. Ekinen dude. That's still funny to this day, of course. Then with their fourth round selection, the Giants went running back and selected Wayne Gallman out of Clemson. I like that pick. He's a very good running back. Very good for depth, too. Then with their fifth round selection, the Giants selected defensive end Avery Moss out of Youngstown State. I believe he was the teammate of Derek Rivers. Yeah, he was. So that's pretty good, And then with their last pick, from the Titans through Patriots and Colts, the Giants selected Adam Bisnow-Waddy, tackle out of Pittsburgh. Wow, you waited all the way until your last pick to address your offensive line. Wow, and that was a big need, I mean, Eagles fans, I know we're saying, you're really going to let Eric Flowers go out there again and try to protect Eli Manning to no avail? Well, they must have thought about it and said, damn it, we didn't get a tackle yet. Well, they got one at their last pick. We'll see how he does. But, it's not a bad pick. We'll see if Bisnow-Waddy gets onto the field. He'll probably just be a depth pick. I doubt Flowers gets beat out by a 6th round pick. Alright, so now we got one more team to do, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? Alright, so the Cowboys' needs were cornerback, defensive line, safety, wide receiver, and tight end. So let's see how they did with this draft. By the way, I'm going to give the Giants a B. They didn't have that bad of a draft. Of course, it would have been lower, but they saved face by going offensive line with their very last pick. Of course. But I'm giving them a B. Now to the Cowboys. With their first round selection, which was 28th overall, they selected Taco Charlton, defensive end out of Michigan. That dude's a monster. He'll be wreaking havoc in the backfield all year long. Of course, Randy Gregory is an idiot because he can't stay off the weed. Duh. But at least you got DeMarcus Lawrence, right? Yeah, whatever. If only Randy Gregory could just stay off of the weed, then you'd actually have some pretty good DNs, but he can't. So you got Taco and DeMarcus Lawrence. Not too bad at all. Then with their second round pick, the Cowboys selected Chidobe Awuzie, corner out of Colorado. Okay, so they lost Claiborne, they lost Brandon Carr, they brought in Nolan Carroll, and then they bring in Chidobe Awuzie. And then with their third round pick, they signed Jordan Lewis, corner out of Michigan. Okay, so they signed 2 straight corners, so they got that whole issue figured out. And then with their fourth round selection, the Cowboys selected Ryan Switzer, wide receiver out of North Carolina. He's a speedster. That's one thing I do know about him, and he's pretty good too. So I think he'll be a really good weapon for Dak Prescott. Dak. And then, moving on to the 6th round, the Cowboys had 2 picks in the 6th round. The first of which they used from the Jets on Xavier Woods, not the wrestler. No, not the wrestler. from Louisiana Tech. He's a safety. And the second one they used on Marquez White, corner out of Florida State. So they went hardcore secondary in this draft. They shouldn't really have too many problems with, corners. Xavier Woods, people thought, is that the wrestler? No, that's not the wrestler. No. No. You're an idiot if you thought that. That's a joke, by the way. That's not the wrestler. No. They just happen to have similar names. Then with their 7th round pick, which they had 3 of them, the first one they used on Joey Ivy, defensive tackle out of Florida. The second one they used on Noah Brown, wide receiver out of Ohio State. He's very good. Not a speedster, but he's got great hands. And the third one they used on Jordan Carell, defensive tackle out of Colorado. So that's going to do it for the Cowboys draft. And I'm going to give the Cowboys a hearty A-. Because they just had so many great picks, They addressed the secondary, which was a big need. And I applaud them for that. And they got themselves a few good other guys as well. They got Taco Charlton at defensive end. They got Ryan Switzer. They got, who else? Noah Brown, who's pretty good. And maybe that Jordan Carroll can be something. But yeah, that's going to do it for the NFC East draft review. Hope you guys liked this video. If you didn't, I don't care. Don't watch the video then. But I'm Crazy Dog, and I'm out.